When you look up at the sky, it seems pretty straightforward. You've got the sun for the day, the moon for the night, both of them these brilliant sources of light. But what if I told you that one of them is basically a giant lamp and the other is just a mirror? It's a fascinating idea, so let's get right into it. And that brings us to this really wild question. I mean, think about it. For most of human history, it was just common sense, right? The moon makes its own light. But then you have this text from way back in the 7th century that seems to say something completely different. It makes this distinction that science wouldn't actually confirm for like 1,000 years. So how on earth is that possible? Okay, to really get how big a deal this is, we gotta travel back in time. Put yourself in the shoes of someone living, say, 1400 years ago. You look up, you see the sun, this big, bright light for the day. And then at night, you see the moon, another bright light. They're just two different lights in the sky. The idea that one is a blazing ball of fire and the other is just a cold rock, that's not just something they didn't know. It would have sounded completely crazy. It goes against everything your eyes are telling you. So this is where the puzzle really takes shape. On one hand, you have what literally everyone saw with their own two eyes. The sun is a light source, and hey, the moon is a light source too. Simple. But then you've got this ancient text saying, well, actually, only the sun is the source. The moon, that's just a reflection. And that contradiction is exactly what we need to figure out. Now, the key to cracking this whole thing isn't in some dusty old astronomy book. It's in the language. The clue is hiding in plain sight in the very specific and very different Arabic words the text chooses for the sun and the moon. Okay, so check this out. The text always calls the sun a Siraj and the moon a Nur, and these words are absolutely not the same thing. Think of Siraj as an active source, something with fuel, something that's burning and creating its own heat and light, like a lamp. But Nur is different. It just means light, the light itself. And the crucial thing here is that it's a neutral word. It doesn't say where the light comes from. So it could be borrowed or, you guessed it, reflected. Let's dig into Siraj for a second. The best way to think about it is an old-school oil lamp, right? It's got fuel, it's got a wick, and it's actively burning that fuel to make a flame. It has its own internal engine, its own power source. So when the text calls the sun a Siraj, it's not just being poetic. It's making a really specific claim about how it works. And now for Nur. This word is all about the light you actually see, but it's totally silent on where that light came from. You know, the light streaming into your room from a window? That's Nur. That little glint off a piece of shiny metal? That's also Nur. It describes the effect, not the cause. It is the perfect word to use if you're talking about reflected light. And here it is, straight from the text itself. The verse says, "And he made the moon therein a reflected light, Nur, and made the sun a burning lamp, Siraj." Did you catch that? In the very same sentence, it uses these two totally different words. It's so deliberate. It doesn't say a lamp and another lamp. It says a lamp and a light. All right, so the linguistic argument is pretty compelling. The choice of words is super specific, but the big question is, does it actually line up with what we know today from science? Let's leave the ancient language for a minute and jump into modern physics to see if this whole thing holds up. So, first up, the sun. The temperature at its core, get this, is 15 million degrees Celsius. That's not just hot, that's the engine of a gigantic thermonuclear furnace. I mean, if that doesn't perfectly fit the description of a blazing lamp, a Siraj, then I honestly don't know what would. And this really gets to the heart of the matter scientifically. The sun, it's a massive nuclear fusion reactor. It's constantly creating its own energy. The moon, on the other hand, it's a cold, dark, and basically dead piece of rock. It has zero internal light source. None. So the science lines up perfectly with those ancient words. The sun is a Siraj, a lamp, and the moon is just a reflector of Nur, of light. Here's a really simple way to picture this. Imagine you're standing in a completely pitch black room, no lights at all. The sun is like a powerful flashlight in your hand. And the moon? The moon is a mirror hanging on the far wall. The only reason you can even see that mirror is because it's catching the light from your flashlight and bouncing it back to you. That is exactly what's happening up there in space every single night. All right, but this leads to the obvious question, the one a good skeptic would ask. Is this really proof of some kind of advanced knowledge? Or could it all just be, a beautiful poetic choice that doesn't really mean anything scientifically? And that's a totally fair point. The skeptical view goes something like this. Look, Nur just means light. The moon gives off light at night, so calling it a light isn't some deep scientific statement. It's just stating the obvious. It's poetry, guys, not physics. But the counterargument to that brings us back to a really key detail. It's not just about one verse here or there. It's about a perfect, unbreakable pattern. The text is 100% consistent. It never, ever slips up. It never calls the moon a Siraj, a lamp, and it never, ever describes the sun as a reflection. And that right there is the crucial point, the consistency. Think about it. In a time with no telescopes, when the moon absolutely looks like it's glowing on its own, to stick to this perfect distinction, to separate the idea of an active, burning source from a passive, reflecting one, that's what elevates this from just a nice bit of poetry into something that looks a lot like significant data. So let's just pull all these threads together. What we're looking at is this incredible moment where two things line up perfectly. You have this very precise linguistic distinction from a text that's 1,400 years old, and then you have the confirmed physics of how our solar system actually works. So we started with a puzzle. To our eyes, the sun and moon both just look like lights. The clue we found was in the language. Siraj, the lamp for the sun, and Nur, the light for the moon. Then science comes in and confirms it. The sun is a fusion reactor, and the moon is just a reflector. So the final verdict? The ancient language describes the scientific reality with, frankly, perfect accuracy. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. This perfect matchup, this 100% consistent distinction between a lamp and a mirror, made centuries before anyone had a telescope. Is that all just a beautiful, lucky, poetic coincidence? Or are we looking at a scientific insight that was simply way, way ahead of its time?